All right, boys and girls. So let me tell you about a little story. When I was about your age, one of the few things that my parents would allow me to tackle in the kitchen was macaroni and cheese. Good old Kraft, it's the cheesiest. So I would come in, get my box of macaroni and cheese, and then I would need a pot of boiling water to cook up those noodles. And this is a very similar image that we've all seen in our homes at some point. What's really going on, though, is a convection current, just like we've studied with the mantle. You've got the flame down at the bottom, and then it warms up the water. Warm temperature is less dense, so it rises. And then as it rises to the top, it gets further away from the flame. It becomes cooler. Well, cool temperature, or cold, is denser, it's heavier, so it falls down to the bottom. And then it gets warm again, it goes back up to the top, gets cold again, goes back down to the bottom. Now, I don't really mean cold like brrr. I mean it cools off because it's further away from the flame. So you get that circular motion like we've been talking about with convection currents in the mantle. Here is an image of a room, and it's got a radiator over on the left-hand side. A radiator is like an old school heater, and there's still radiators out there. Probably not in your homes, but in older buildings for sure. And then over on the right-hand side, you can see there's a window, and we've got a label there that says it's a cold window, so maybe it's in the winter. And we've got the warm air rising off of the radiator, and then it is up at the upper portion of the room. And then as it cools off, it gets a little bit further away from the radiator, and then it's closer to the cold window. That air cools down, so it's denser, and so it essentially falls down to closer to the ground. And so that is a version of a convection current as well, that circular motion. Here we've got an image that should look familiar by now. It's a little cutaway of our Earth, and we've got our circular motion of the molten magma happening in the mantle. And it's a little bit of a close-up image. You can see our labels of the lithosphere, the upper portion of the crust, and then the asthenosphere, the lower portion of the crust, and the upper portion of the mantle. And that good old convection current action is still taking place. Now here is an image that represents a trench in the ocean floor, and you can see that it's almost like, you know, our Earth is an egg, and our Earth has cracks in it, and the trenches would be one of those cracks. That magma is oozing its way up through that trench. And that's how we get something known as seafloor spreading that we are talking about as we study plate tectonics. As the magma, it's very hot, obviously, and warmth rises. It's less dense than cool, and so that magma pushes its way up through that trench, and it cools and hardens, and as more magma moves up through that trench, it pushes that already cooled and hardened new floor away and further away, and so that's how we have the phenomenon known as seafloor spreading. Here's a little cutaway showing two plates separating. We've got two plates moving away from each other. Those are known as divergent plates, which should be familiar to you by now. And that magma, that warm, hot, scalding hot magma is less dense than hardened rock, and so that magma is pushing its way up. Just another cutaway image of the ocean floor, seafloor spreading. Sorry, you can hear the dogs there in the background. This is real life, people. Here's an image of the globe with those red lines representing trenches or ridges all throughout our ocean floors. And so again, we mentioned seafloor spreading. You can see it's happening in several different places around the world. And then lastly here is just a satellite image of the globe where you can see the trenches and ridges cutting their way through the crust there at the bottom of the oceans.